Do we have everything configured correctly? I hope we have everything configured correctly. We can switch to the Live Pro. We can switch to the psychedelic, man. Yeah. What's happening, Boot Junkies? Mike Delgadio here, back with another video on home studio setup, but not for voiceover this time. Kinda, but not really. We're going to set up a home studio for training or coaching or webinars, that sort of thing. One-on-one coaching, tutoring, that sort of stuff. I've created a little temporary video studio here in my control room to show you how you can easily set up a multi-camera shoot for your training or coaching. If you do any kind of remote coaching or tutoring, either for work, personally as part of what you do, I want to show you how you might improve your production value by using a device called a video switcher. So if you're primarily just looking into your laptop camera and using your laptop's microphone, we're going to take it up a notch. In my own work as a voice actor, I do a fair bit of one-on-one coaching to help new voice actors get their home studios set up, dial in their sound, get everything configured. A second set of ears if they're trying to confirm that their sound is good and ready if it needs any changes. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. But when I do this coaching, I do it for people all over the world. But I want to try and offer as close to an in-person experience as I can. I want to try and invite the other person in to see my studio, to look at equipment, to pretend as close as we can that they're here with me, even if they're on another continent. So in addition to seeing me, clearly, I might want to also share my screen, maybe not have the ultra psychedelic view, but maybe we want to share the software that we typically use for training or that we use in voiceover, a DAW. I might want to might want to seamlessly switch over to show settings on a piece of gear that we need to talk about. In this case, that piece of gear we'll talk about is this video switcher. Or I might want to have multiple locations. You might want to have multiple locations that you're teaching from. For example, I might teach from here in my control room, or I might be teaching mic technique or something from directly being in the booth. So I can have a separate camera and switch over to there just during my session. That's Headley. That's my assistant who's pretending to be me. That's my stand-in when I'm in the booth. Headley. Thank you, Headley. We're happy to have you here. Anyway, the point is you can have multiple cameras. I've got an overhead camera. I've got another camera in there, but it all flows into this device so that my viewers and my computer, it's just a webcam. It just shows up as a webcam. I want to be able to switch through all of these different things without having to go back over to Zoom and say, okay, where's the share button? Okay, I'm sharing. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen now? No, I don't want to do that. I just want to switch over to my screen and talk about the screen. And I want to switch back to me when I need to make eye contact you and switch over and switch back and then point to the device and say, here, you need to click this button right here on your device, right? I want it to be seamless. And that's where a video switcher like this can come in handy. This device is from a company called FeelWorld. It was sent to me by the folks over at Andycine, and they sent me this FeelWorld Live Pro L1 to make this review. And I thought I would just share it with you. Now, weirdly, at the same time, they said, can we send you a mini tripod? I'm like, yeah, okay, a mini tripod. I'm an audio guy. I'm not really a tripod. I'm not really a photography guy. But they did send me this little tripod, and they asked me to talk about it. So I'm going to show you this tripod. I will say that when I first got it, I was like, why are you sending me a mini tripod? I don't know anything about it. But actually, as someone who has a lot of cameras and stuff set up, a little mini tripod like this one, this has been surprisingly handy. I've used it a few times already all it is just this set of legs. It's got, oh, sorry for the mic noise. It's got a 1/4" 20 on the top. You can just screw it into a ball head. Here I have it into a microphone mount, but you could easily put it into a ball head, anything like that. It's all aluminum. The legs click into place. You can lock them out into a steeper, more stable thing. So if you wanted to make it the bottom of a selfie stick monopod type deal, you could absolutely do this. This has actually been surprisingly durable. So I didn't know why they sent me a mini tripod for an audio station, but I'm glad they did, because I ended up getting a lot more use out of it. And as you can see, it makes a great mic stand. So thanks, Andycine, for the tripod. $19? Steal at $19. Throw in a $16 mini ball head. Sorry, not to give a weird plug, but this is one from Coyote. This one has been awesome. At $16, putting these two together for like a $30 mini tripod, forget it. Forget it. It's a deal. It's a deal. Coyote, this is the MX20 mini ball head. It's got a 1/4" 20 at the bottom. These things are like a rock. Once you put that in place, man, I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it for $16. Anyway, thanks for the tripod, Andycine. I'm grateful for it. But no more tripods. We're going to talk about the switcher now. Okay, how does the switcher work? The switcher, all you need to know really is that there are 4 inputs on the back. You can plug in 4 sources. This could be multiple cameras, as I have here, multiple cameras and a computer screen, as I have here. It could be multiple computers. It could be multiple guests, anything like that. Anything with an HDMI out, you can put it here. So these could be your DSLRs. These could be mirrorless cameras, anything that's got an HDMI out. As long as the camera has the ability to do something called clean HDMI. In other words, you can take all of the text off of the display and send that out the HDMI. Most modern cameras with an HDMI out can do that. It will plug into here. And then it shows up in the different window, all of the 4 sources that you have, and those correspond to the 4 buttons here. So you can switch easily just by pressing the button, and you switch back to the other source. You press the button and you switch back to the other source. And you can do that as many times as you want. But to the computer, it just comes over the USB cable over to the computer, and the computer just sees it as a webcam. Everything that you need to do can be done from this switcher, at least for the Live Pro L1, the Feel World one. Not all switchers can operate completely in like this standalone mode. They need software on the computer. The Feel World does not. There is software that you can install to operate this, but you can do everything from the menus. Having the software is just like a different interface. It doesn't really get you extra stuff from what I've been able to tell. As I mentioned, it does go over a USB cable, and it just shows up. Like I said, I've installed nothing on the computer. On the device, there's also this T-bar that you can use to configure as a slider to switch between sources. This is of limited use when you're in a situation where you're a single person creator, like I'm doing here. This is the slider bar is if you wanted to have a little bit more fine control over switching between sources. And it's really for like if you're doing a video podcast where there's a director who's switching back and forth between maybe a host and a guest or something like that. But there's a director that's switching between the views. I'll show you how you can turn it on. If we go back to the view, first you need to you go into the SW button, this settings button. I'm not sure why it's SW, but you go and first the top illumination says mix, and that's you choose how you want to transition between the two. If it's just a cut, you just want to cut between the two, you can do that. And then you press the SW button again, and then in the mode, where it says mode, you choose mode, and you change it from fast to T-bar. Click that. And now, when you want to switch, instead of pressing the next button and switching it instantly, it starts to flash and tells you that it's queued up. So we've got a red one that shows the station, the source that we're on. I said the station that we're on. And then where we want to go. And then when you're ready to switch, you throw the switch over. And then you can throw the switch back and go back and forth between them. Like I said, it doesn't really make that big a difference. Really, I think what they're expecting is that instead of just cutting between the two, is you switch to a different mix. So let's say you wanted to fade between the two. We can fade, and now when we want to switch, we can just switch between the two with a simple fader. We can just slide back and forth with a simple fader. And you see it's, depending on how much we slide that, it will mix between the two. And that could be for different mix effects. So we could have, a wipe to the side. So instead of fading between the two, we could mix between the two. How you doing? We could do that. So you can switch between the two. So they have a bunch of different of these mix effects in here. Pull it back up. They have a bunch of different effects, so you can choose whichever you want. Typically, I just use cut. I just want to cut between the two. And typically, I don't use the T-bar. I just use an automatic fast. I just want to make it so that when I press the button, it switches between the two. That's how it does it on TV. It's rare that they fade between sources on TV, so I just want to make it so that the T-bar doesn't do anything. I just want to make it so that I can switch between the two sources. So that's how we configure it. Now, I will say, you saw that there's a fair bit of button pressing to do some of these things. Same goes for something like the picture-in-picture. If you wanted to have picture-in-picture, you have to press the SW button until the picture-in-picture menu comes up. You switch over to the kind of picture-in-picture view you want, select that view, and then you can switch your sources between the pay-per-view. But then you can end up with a view that's like this, where you can see the main camera and the other view. In order to turn the picture-in-picture off, you probably have to come back to the picture-in-picture menu, turn the dial until it says off, and then switch it off. The menus, the fact that you can do everything from the device is handy. I really like that feature. But the way that they have these menus, there's a lot of clicking involved. And the thing I don't want to do when I'm training is I don't want to have the technology distract me from interacting with you. So for me, I typically try and avoid touching these top menus, these top buttons. I just want to switch between my sources and cut instantly between them. The fact that there are all these menus is handy because you can configure it, but it's also a drawback because it can't be automated. I would love it if there was a way that I could have a button press that automatically went to picture-in-picture, chose the right view, automatically put everything together, and did all those steps in a row. The FeelWorld device does not do that. If you did want that kind of functionality, you could switch over to the Blackmagic line. This is over here is an ATEM. There's an ATEM Mini that's comparable in price to this that can do the automation. It's not without its own set of quirks, that device. So if you are comparing it, think about the quirks from that device, think about the quirks from this device, and that should help you decide. Being able to just plug and play is awesome. Having the ability to install software and have it do macros on the Blackmagic side is awesome. Trade-offs between the two. There you have it. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is audio. You can see here that I have an audio cable plugged in, and that actually comes over to this mixer interface that's over here. This is the Centrance Mixer Face 4. High quality, great battery operated, basic mixer that has a line output. And that line output is important. The line output takes the signal over into the side. This audio in is just for line in signals. So if you've got like an on-camera microphone and you think, oh, I can just plug the microphone into the side, it's probably not going to work. Most microphones, like this microphone, require something called, if it's a condenser microphone like this, it requires something called phantom power, and that will need a mixer, a powered device. A lot of the on-camera microphones, like from Rode, from Movo and stuff like that, they require something called plug-in power. And many cameras supply plug-in power, but this device does not. So you can't just plug a microphone in here. Look at your manual for your microphone. If it says it requires phantom or plug-in power, this device can't feed it. You'll need to either plug it into your camera. I have a camera up here. Plug it into your camera or plug it into a mixer so that you can bring the audio in. You can bring the audio in. You can bring high-quality audio in, but know that this is not a powered output for microphones. That's important. The other thing to know about the audio is the audio can only be one source at a time. So in this case, the audio only comes into this microphone. I've got it configured so that the microphone sends the audio in, but all of my other sources, the audio is not heard. For training where you're doing something like a PowerPoint, that's probably all you need. You need a microphone, and then you can display whatever's on your screen. But if your training does involve also playing sound from the computer, you may need to make some alternate decisions. What I'm getting at is, if let's say I had sound on my computer and I needed that sound to play back, when I have the microphone active, this computer audio is not heard. If I want to make the audio on the computer heard, I have to come into the menu, come down to audio, click the button, change the source to the other input, whichever input it would be. That is less than convenient. Making those switches like that is less than convenient. There are some switchers that allow you to have a microphone and a source that's selected. I understand why they haven't done that on this device. It would significantly complicate the interface. It would most likely make it that you had to have some sort of software that was installed. But know that if you do have a requirement to play sound out of your computer and use a microphone, you may need to think a little bit more deeply about your setup. Just plugging in the microphone would mean that it precludes sound from your computer. Not a big deal, but it's something to know for whatever your training workflow might be. Okay. On the side, I mentioned that there is a USB port. This is a USB 3.0 that goes over to the computer. So my computer's here. It's plugged into the computer. I don't think you can see it. If I pull it here, you can see it. It's plugged in. You know how a USB plugs in. It is USB 3. Weirdly, it's a USB-A on both sides. It's a USB 3 protocol, but it takes an A-sized jack on both sides. I can't unplug it to show you, but it's like the standard rectangular jack. You probably don't have another one of those cables sitting around. Know that these cables, this is a short cable that it comes with. It's only like 1.5 feet. So you may need to buy another cable if your computer and this device are going to be far away from each other. It is it's not exactly a special order. You can find them on Amazon, but a USB-A to USB-A that uses a USB 3 protocol, they're a little harder to find. So you might want to order one or two extras. Yeah, because that could be a thing. So overall, at $300, this is very reasonably priced. That's sort of the entry-level price for a 4-level switcher. You can see that it's super easy to plug and play. If I get a couple of cameras, plug in a computer, turn on some lights, all of a sudden you've got a really nice switching setup so that you can really up your coaching game, your training game, your webinar game. It can really make things a lot smoother, a lot easier. So I encourage you to think about if a video switcher is right for you, because it can really up the game from just using your laptop's microphone and camera. Can really make a big deal. You can decide if the quirks of the Live Pro 1, some of the quirks that we talked about, if they're right for you. Like I said, this is going to get compared all over the place to the A10 Mini, a device not without its own set of quirks. You just have to sort of decide, do I want to have to install software and write macros to do all of those things on the Blackmagic side? Or do I want something that I just plug in and it's just ready to go, and I don't want to install anything on my computer? I just want to do it all from my device. Two different ways to accomplish the same thing. The last thing I'll say is that everything in the switcher world, and this kind of goes for all the switchers, everything is a resolution of 1080p. So even though this is a Retina Max screen, and that's a 4K camera, and this overhead camera, this is a 4K camera, everything gets condensed down to 1080p. The Live Pro 1 does it. The A10 lines do it. Everything right now is at 1080p. And for live streaming, for webinars, for coaching, for Zoom, that's perfect. That's all you need. It does mean that you can't also save a 4K version. You'd have to put SD cards everywhere and record all the screens separately and do a separate, video edit to put all that stuff together. But everything is 1080p at this point. And that's not unique to the Feel world. That's kind of all of the switchers. But it does mean it's just something to be aware of. If you're unfamiliar with this, know that even if you're sending a 4K signal into this, presuming you've got a camera that can output 4K over its HDMI, the Feel world or all the switchers are going to take it down to 1080p. Is there anything about this device that I need to go over? Anything else? That's pretty much it. I will say that as far as this device goes, for what it does at its price point, super happy with that device. As far as a switcher, it's been absolutely solid. It's been great. Not having to install anything on my computer has been great. Having the screen here, being able to see this screen just as a confidence so I can remember what all of my sources are, so I can just do it at a glance, has been absolutely great. I can definitely see using a device like this so that I can concentrate on my coaching. I can stay engaged with the people that I'm talking to and have this bit of technology just becomes something that I operate with just a touch of a finger, so it just essentially disappears. For my goals, making this so that this piece of technology is essentially invisible makes a huge, huge difference. And anything that I can do to make my coaching sessions more engaging so that I can connect better with the people that I'm talking to, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's with a group, and have the technology get out of my way so I don't have to think about it, that's a win in my book. So there you have it. That's the Feel World Live Pro L1 that was sent to me by Andycine. Thank you so much, Andycine, for sending it to me. And thank you so much for sending me this little this little tripod. What a great little tripod. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for it. I'm really grateful for it. Okay. Tripod. Not sure why I got a tripod. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. If you found the video helpful, if this was at all educational, if it taught you anything, do me a favor. The only thing I ask for is if you click a like on the video, that tells YouTube that it's been helpful and that they could show it to other people who will also hopefully get help from it. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to do anything else you want. But if you could click the like button, if it helps, I'd be grateful for it. Thank you so much. That's all I have for you today. Now, go get yourself a microphone. Get yourself a video switcher so that you can up your training game, so that you can coach these people and teach something amazing. That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much. Take care.